Okay, before we get into this video, I want to address this comment, right? Because I understand there may be a lot of people new here that may not know exactly how we do this. Now, yes, I will be the first person to brag whenever we have a big win, but I'll also be the first person to admit, okay, I was wrong. I'm going to consistently try to improve my process and consistently get better at drafting these fantasy football teams, regardless of what we talked about maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, a month from now. I'm going to continuously try to improve my process. So yeah, earlier this offseason, I went through and said Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry were in the same tier for me. And then I had to give an updated apology video saying that I was wrong to say that Nick Chubb was a clear tier ahead of Derrick Henry. And while yes, maybe a couple of these running backs earlier in the offseason, I wasn't all about, now that their ADP has fallen, I'm going to be reevaluating if they're actually exciting options now, and then talk about where we should be drafting them, if at all. But before we get into this, you better be dropping a like on this video. You better be subscribed to the channel if you play fantasy football. And of course, if you play fantasy football, you're going to love flogfantasy.com. Over there on flogfantasy.com, you can find all of my 2023 fantasy football rankings that, yes, will not be the same a month from now, 2 months from now as they are today. We're going to consistently try to improve those leading up till kickoff. And also, you will find all my premium content. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, you are going to get 30% off any subscription. You are going to get yours truly going through and making a podcast, breaking down your fantasy football team. And hell, you'll be a part of an awesome community. But I think that should be it. Let's go ahead and let's dive into this video. Going to be very similar and almost a continuation of the video we had the other day where we went through and we looked at running backs in piss poor offenses on piss poor teams, right? Because we know we're able to look at Las Vegas win totals for this upcoming season and have a very good idea of where the wins will be. What teams will be good? What teams will be bad? Where are the standings going to be near the end of the season? Now, of course, it's not 100% accurate, but I mean, hell, Las Vegas sportsbooks, they know a lot. They're pretty good at predicting. I'd say Vegas sportsbooks are better than you. They're better than me. And anybody who convinces themselves otherwise, you're probably lying to yourself. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to look at how running backs on top NFL teams have produced over the past decade. And I think these numbers are going to be very surprising because if we go to 2022, you didn't really have top running backs with these teams, right? I mean, the top 5 teams were the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Bills, the Vikings, the 49ers, where we know the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Bills, they don't really have running backs that go out there and turn into league-winning options, right? You have McKinnon, you have Sanders, you have Singletary, all of whom had decent stretches, but it's not like they were dominant through the course of the entire season. Now, of course, Dalvin, CMC, they were just fine. But if we remove this past season and look a little bit deeper and look at what we've had over the past 10 seasons, you're going to begin to realize, yeah, if you're a team at the very top of the NFL, you are going to have so many running back points. Now, this is for a multitude of different reasons. One, teams that are winning football games will be able to run the ball consistently in the second half. I think that's understandable. I think that is what most people know, that teams that are winning football games run the ball in the second half. On top of this, these teams that are winning football games inherently will have more trips to the red zone and inherently will have more touchdown opportunities for the starting running back in their own offense. This is kind of intuitive, right? Yeah, of course, if an offense is better, they'll have more fantasy points to go around. And then last but not least, a small part of the puzzle is going to be the fact that if you have a phenomenal running back, it'll probably improve your team slightly, right? So those 3 variables are going to kind of combine and produce a lot of running backs in fantasy that are really exciting with these top teams. The next season, we have the running back 13, 4, 17, 29, 22. The year after, 23, 43, 6, 2, 28. The year after that, 10, 3, 8, 35, 25, 1, 4, 15, 8, 5, 10, 17, 35, 2, 13, 14, 3, 17, 11, 7, 19, 16, 29, 45, 2, 13, 6, 29, 21, 4, 6, 35, 8, and 24. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through and take an in-depth look on how these teams that were at the very top of NFL standings compared to the teams that were at the very bottom over the past decade and where these running backs finished. So if y'all watched the video where we broke down the teams that were at the very bottom of the standings and their starting running backs, you'll remember that there were 0 running backs that finished inside the top 6 that had a team that was bottom 5 in the standings that season. So those running backs really didn't have access to league winning upside, right? You had 0 out of 50 over the past decade, where in comparison to the top end teams, you have those running backs winning leagues. You had 15 running backs inside the top 6. Going down and looking at running back ones, I mean, obviously you have more running backs here in the bottom teams. You have 8 running backs that were inside the top 12, but going to the top teams, you have 22 guys. I mean, if we're going to go top 18, you have 32 compared to 11. If we're going to go top 24, we have 22 compared to 38. If we're going to go top 30, you have 45 compared to 31. So a couple big takeaways here. The running backs that are in the top offenses in the NFL, the top teams in standings, will have running backs with access to league-winning upside. You have guys that can get to the top 6 consistently. We saw 15 out of 50 teams have a running back inside the top 6 with the best teams in the league, and 0 out of 50 with the worst teams in the league. So the bad teams, no league-winning upside. The good teams, league-winning upside. On top of this, you had a much higher floor with those running backs that were a part of the good teams as well. You had 45 running backs finishing inside the top 30 for those top teams in comparison to 31 inside the top 30 for those bottom teams. So if you have a running back that is in a top offense on a top team in the NFL, that player will have an elite ceiling and a very high floor as well. Whereas obviously the bottom end teams, they don't have that. We already talked about the running backs that are in the bottom end teams with these Las Vegas win totals in that last video. But I want to go through and look at the running backs in the very top end now. Let's start it off with the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously. Now, last year, the Chiefs did not have a prototypical league-winning running back. Now, yeah, because Jerick McKinnon had all his points at the very end of the season, yeah, McKinnon was pretty damn good for your fantasy football team, but at the same time, it's not necessarily like McKinnon was a league winner from week 1 to the very end. Now, if we're looking at the upcoming season with the Kansas City Chiefs, I think it's safe to say that Isaiah Pacheco will be the starting running back for the Chiefs going into this next season. And if we are looking at where Isaiah Pacheco is being drafted, right now in underdog drafts, Isaiah Pacheco currently is the running back 25 with an ADP of 79. You are currently getting Isaiah Pacheco after Alexander Mattison, after Cam Akers, after DeAndre Swift, and after Dalvin Cook. So if we combine what we've had over the past 2 videos, in my mind, Pacheco is a very easy selection here over a few of these other names. I would definitely take Isaiah Pacheco over a running back like, let's say, Cam Akers, who's supposed to be in a bottom 5 team this next season. And then I would also say the running back that's going directly after Isaiah Pacheco in Rachaad White. I really don't have much interest with Rachaad White there. I will go Pacheco. Now, we do also have to talk about the risk with Isaiah Pacheco in that you don't necessarily know if this is the exact running back depth chart the Chiefs will have going into this next season. Now, if it were to be the exact depth chart, you can probably say Isaiah Pacheco, running back 25, tremendous value. And y'all know earlier on this offseason, I said, okay, if Jerick McKinnon's being drafted as like a top 40 RB, if he's being drafted next to Khalil Herbert, Elijah Mitchell, I'm not too interested. But if we knew that they weren't adding Leonard Fournette, they weren't adding Kareem Hunt, they weren't adding Dalvin Cook, there was not going to be another running back added to Kansas City this offseason, then I would even say McKinnon at his price, completely fine. And in a full PPR format, I'll go ahead and I will draft him there. Specifically, if you were playing in like a best ball draft, of course, it's going to be very difficult. Don't know exactly when Jerick McKinnon will have his spike weeks. But the big issue is when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs will be the fact that you just don't know exactly what that depth chart will be this next season. So, of course, it is very dependent on where you're drafting. I mean, if we're going to be comparing Isaiah Pacheco in ESPN drafts to Underdog, right now Isaiah Pacheco in casual ESPN leagues is being drafted back-to-back with Miles Sanders, where that price point, I probably prefer Miles Sanders. Whereas if you're looking at those Underdog drafts, you have Isaiah Pacheco with an ADP of 79 and Miles Sanders with an ADP of 59. So there, give me Pacheco in these Underdog drafts. But of course, if you want to get in a draft on Underdog, you can do so with the link in the comment section, the link in the description. When you sign up to Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, you will get a 100% deposit match up to $100. You'll get my 2023 fantasy football rankings, a free trial to flockfantasy.com. I mean, we drafted over 700 teams on Underdog, won over 150,000 last year. Best balls to no time commitment at all during the season. My mind, best place to play. We're going to be live streaming drafts every single day till the start of the year. But let's go over to our next team. Let's look at the Philadelphia Eagles here, starting off with DeAndre Swift. Now, y'all know we've talked about DeAndre Swift being a running back that I was clearly avoiding once he was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles in these contests just opened up. But at the same time, can we reevaluate? I understand if I go out there and I put a video saying this player is a clear avoid, I am not drafting him at his price. It's difficult for me to go through and look at it 6-7 weeks later and go, okay, maybe it's a little bit of a different story. Because if y'all remember, when these draft contests just opened up, DeAndre Swift was going, before Joe Mixon. DeAndre Swift was going before Dameon Pierce. DeAndre Swift was going neck and neck with J.K. Dobbins. DeAndre Swift used to go at the end of the 5th round, the beginning of the 6th round in these underdog drafts. Well, since then, DeAndre Swift has seen his ADP crater to where now DeAndre Swift is going at pick 76. DeAndre Swift is being drafted in the same range as Cam Akers as well as Alexander Mattison. Now, I still have some pretty big concerns with DeAndre Swift, if I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like the fact that DeAndre Swift wins as a pass catcher and Jalen Hurts is that Russian quarterback who's not going to have to check the ball down. In my mind, that's not a great situation for Swift to be in. And why? When he was being drafted at the very end of the 5th, the very beginning of the 6th, I wanted nothing to do with DeAndre Swift. This price point, it's definitely a little more appealing. I mean, if we're going to be comparing him in underdog drafts in comparison to where you're actually getting him in ESPN drafts. What's funny is if you're going to go through and look at ESPN leagues, DeAndre Swift is still kind of going in that same range. DeAndre Swift's going neck and neck with J.K. Dobbins right now in those ESPN drafts, and I'm probably going to be avoiding him there. But I mean, on underdog, I think it's honestly a fine price because he's fallen so much. I understand we said we were avoiding him, but please keep in mind when his ADP falls that much, I'm able to go through and I'm able to update our opinion on the man. Now, going over to the other running back in this offense, looking at Rashad Penny, with Rashad Penny, it all comes down to his price as well. It's going to be dependent on what you are looking at in realistic expectations. I think Rashad Penny could give you a couple random spike weeks with a couple touchdowns just because the Philadelphia Eagles are going to score so many freaking points. Now, can Rashad Penny be a running back 1 in fantasy? Most likely not, right? It's going to be a running back by committee, but specifically in best ball, I'd be fine with Rashad Penny where he goes. He has an ADP back and back with Antonio Gibson going directly behind Devon Achane. Now, going over to our next RB, someone that has risen a ton in these underdog drafts. Looking at Joe Mixon, right now, Joe Mixon has an ADP where he is going as the running back 18, pick 56. The Cincinnati Bengals are locked into most likely being a top NFL team this next season. And if you're looking at Joe Mixon over the past 2 years from a points per game perspective, Mixon's been phenomenal. Joe Mixon actually increased his involvement as a pass catcher this past season as well. So given the data that we have here with good teams producing a lot of points at the running back position, I kind of like Joe Mixon's price, even with it being so much higher than it was when these contests just opened up. Now you have CMC for the 49ers as well. CMC, it's already priced in, right? Like I can't sit here and go, oh yeah, you got to draft Christian McCaffrey. He has so much upside. The man could be the running back 1 in fantasy. He's being drafted as the running back 1 in fantasy, okay? So people already know this with CMC. The 49ers are a very good team. They're going to want to run the ball over and over and over again. So there's not too much that I can be saying here when it comes to McCaffrey. Now, the Buffalo Bills is another situation that is very reminiscent of what we have with the Kansas City Chiefs. And that this is a team that will win a lot of games. This is a team that I think, you are fine going through and taking these running backs at cost. Right now, if we're going to be looking at James Cook is going in a very reasonable range where he's the running back 30 off the board. So James Cook is a mid running back 3, and specifically in these underdog drafts where James Cook's going alongside Michael Thomas, Cortland Sutton, Elijah Moore, Jamison Williams, Juju Smith-Schuster. I want to be taking running back in this range. I'm drafting a lot of James Cook here. I'm also drafting a lot of Alvin Kamara as well. I think running back is a phenomenal pick in this range. And later on, you have Damian Harris, running back 39, who's going alongside the wide receivers, Jacoby Myers, Zay Jones. And at this point, looks like it's a clear 2-man backfield in Buffalo. The only thing that I'd be worried about potentially is the addition of another running back. I'd be worried about the addition of Dalvin Cook. I'd be worried about the addition of Leonard Fournette, of Kareem Hunt to make this a muddied mess. But like I was saying previously, I'm actually going to be completely fine if you wanted to go ahead, if you wanted to take them at this price point. I think that you have a lot of positives to their respective profiles very similar to what you have with Isaiah Pacheco in Kansas City. I think that they are values with where they currently go, assuming their backfield does not change. You're just going to have to continue to monitor the situation with what we have with those free agent running backs at this time. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for checking out this video. I really hope we were able to help you out in some way. And as always, if you enjoyed it, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you want to get in a draft with us, we're drafting every single day on the live stream on Underdog Fantasy. Go sign up with promo code FLOCK, and you will get a free trial to flockfantasy.com. You'll get a 100% deposit match, and you'll get my 2023 fantasy football rankings. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day, and really hope we get to see you with the live stream sometime soon.